Okay, this is Talk to Thorin, and my guest for this episode is going to be Goldenglue. Technically, still somehow like on the Team Liquid roster. Like, give me that initially. Like, do you have a contract with Team Liquid for the whole year? What is your current status in that sense?
Contract length is public knowledge, right? Pretty sure
I
it is.
assume so. Yeah.
Yeah, I've contracted for 2 years. So
Okay.
yeah.
Right, and so most recently playing in Team Liquid in the spring split, and then they had this move where out of nowhere they just said, I mean, initially, obviously, potentially Link was coming in anyway, and he was perhaps they were going to alternate in who was going to be the mid laner. But then we had this news that Piglet's going to be the mid laner, and then not only that, as if they're like ensuring that they're not going to change back, they bring in Doublelift to be AD carry. So it's obviously very unlikely they're going to bring Piglet back at that point anyway. So this has made the situation where obviously you would have been the sub for now as it is. And so you announced on Twitter, you're going to go to Korea. You're going to kind of try and level up there and put in a lot of practice. If we add all those pieces together, does that mean that once they said Piglet was going to be mid lane and once Doublelift came in as AD carry, does that also mean that there was no chance to get your starting spot back for this split?
Yeah, for the rest of the season, they wanted to make a change and just stick with it for the rest. So there's basically no chance of me coming back after they made the initial change.
Okay.
For this season.
Yeah. So what happened at the beginning of the season then? Because I saw that you guys actually took, like Team Liquid have done this a few times, you guys took a Korean boot camp before you came to this split. So in theory, it's not like people looking at the team now might think, oh, well, maybe Liquid was just kind of still figuring out the lineup and stuff. No, presumably getting Rainover in, having all these pieces, they thought this is going to be the team. You know, we're having the boot camp, we're coming back, it's going to go well. What was the initial scenario where I thought it was quite quickly that they made this announcement that Link was coming back and all this sort of stuff? Was it initially just going to be you as the starting mid laner, or did they ever tell you might have to compete for your spot or something?
So, mid-November I pretty much thought, I mean, I was on TLA last split, and I pretty much thought there was really low chance, like really, really low, like sub 10%, that I would be able to get the main Team Liquid spot, because I knew there was a chance that they were going to get other imports for different roles, and I knew if they kept Piglet, got an import for another role, then I'd have a pretty. I would have a shot at playing for them. So they contacted me mid-November, and they told me, like, you know, I remember it was kind of weird. I think what happened was they told me I had the spot, and then the next day they told me, like, oh, wait, just a second. We're going to do some more thinking. And then after, like, a week of that, they said, okay, we chose you. We're going to Korea in, like, 2 days. So I'm like, okay, pack my bags. We head over there, and I was, to my knowledge, the only mid laner. And then after we played IEM, I was told that they're going to try to bring in Link to make me kind of like put some fire under my ass and, you know, help improve that kind of stuff. And I was fine with that. And yeah, I mean, we thought this was going to be the roster to be ready to play. It definitely was thought that I was going to be a starter. Like we didn't have like any issues, and like everyone thought this was going to be the roster to work and that we're going to go in, you know, guns blazing. And we thought that too ourselves until like it didn't happen.
Okay. So another thing is, by the way I saw your tweets about the last boot camp, the one that was before this split, it sounded like it was your first time in Korea. Was that the first Korean boot camp that you'd done with a team?
Yeah, that was the first time I've ever been in Korea.
Okay. So, I mean, the problem there is obviously you can't really judge it against past teams that have been in boot camps, and you can't know, for example, did teams do well, did they do badly in Korea? It's hard to judge that. But from your sense, how did the actual boot camp go in terms of Team Liquid? Like, were things working out when you were in Korea?
So it's kind of weird to it's not like a boot camp like other. It's not like it wasn't like a really stressful boot camp or intense. It was a pretty like laid back boot camp. We went pretty early. I think we were the first. A lot of teams went, like Immortals went, P1 went. I think there's one more team. Echo Fox went, and we were the first ones there. It was pretty laid back because Rainover had to go to All Stars, and that was right in the middle of the boot camp. So there was a solid like week, maybe a bit more than a week. Maybe it was like 2 weeks. I'm not sure, but we couldn't scrim at all without Rainover. So we played mainly a lot of solo queue. It was more of like a team bonding kind of thing. We did some scrims, and obviously we played at IEM and did, I think, better than people were expecting us to do. So I would say, in my opinion, the Korean boot camp went really well, but we weren't really under very stressful scenarios. And the scrims we did play, though, they went pretty well. And the solo queue went pretty well. I was playing a shit ton, and I was having a lot of fun. And it was really good for me. And I think it was good for the team, but it was really good for me for sure.
Okay, so as you alluded to there, I mean, last season, people thought of Rainover as perhaps the best of all the Western junglers, even. Certainly the best in NA. A lot of people had him as kind of the consensus, because they said he controlled the game so well. He obviously worked with Huni quite famously very, very well. So he was Team Liquid's kind of star acquisition, when they signed this guy. I mean, not only, as you're kind of pointing out, you've only got 2 import spots. So to use one, you've got to have a kind of a big hitter for that. So they got him, and then people thought, right, we've got him, we've got Piglet, these other pieces, as long as they're good enough, this team should be a potential contender. Seems like Rainover himself, for whatever reason in this lineup, hasn't been the player people thought he was last split. Do you think what do you think his issues have been in the team? Like, was he supposed to be, for example, like a central shot caller and someone who'd lead the team and these sorts of things?
So I still think Rainover is one of the better, if not, I think he's definitely one of the better junglers in LCS. I think the meta shift, especially at the early of the season, where it was hard carry junglers that focus on doing damage and like assassins, like Graves, Kha'Zix, Rengar, was not his playstyle at all. You can even tell that from like past seasons. He didn't play like Lee Sin, which was like the kind of assassin jungle, kind of like the Dardoch style. He didn't play that. He doesn't play that at all. So basically, he played like the control junglers extremely well. He like the Rek'Sai, the Nidalee, the Gragas, the Elise, and so he was basically like not on his meta champions, or just the way he plays the game extremely well. He's the kind of jungler that will like actually just outpath the enemy and be smarter than them, like every single time. But basically, what's happening is like these players who are just really good mechanically, like Acadian, were just like they didn't have to have the most optimal path and like think about every single scenario. They just fought really well, and that's not really the playstyle that Rainover was used to. So I think it took him a while to like practice that. Like at the beginning how he was getting triple banned out.
Yeah,
we were definitely. I think he's still. I think he's a really good jungler, and he's one of the best teammates I've ever played with. He's extremely got a great attitude. He's really friendly, really amazing work ethic. But I think the meta, and then he's never really lost before. Like, he's lost like 5 actual games in like
something like
the past 2 years. So I think the losses were really hard on him, and he was getting like really stressed, and I think it was also like stacking up and making him play worse than he normally would.
So the other issue is, if we look at his past teams, he always had Huni in them in LCS. And not only that, but Huni was usually not just like the carry of the team, but in terms of his personality, he seems like the kind of person who essentially just tells the jungler to come top all day long. So now he's not playing with Huni anymore. He's with Lolo, he's with you, he's with Piglet, etc. And if you look at the past mid laners that Rainover's had, like Febiven never really used to win lane that much in Europe anyway. Like they didn't really need to. That wasn't the style, And Pobelt is quite famous for being, like a fairly self-sufficient mid laner who just kind of just plays like standard style. Was how was it to actually play with Reignover as your jungler? Like, was he someone who put a lot of focus on mid? Did the team play around that? What was the relationship in that sense?
We tried to put a lot of pressure around mid, and we're trying to scrim and like focus on working on that. But in reality, in most, especially in LCS games, mid lane is the safest role and the hardest to gank almost always because it's just the shortest lane. So we would try. Mainly, we would just focus on vision control, and we were pretty good at it. But I would say that like he is very good at setting up a carry, like setting up someone like Huni. Huni is like a carry player who absorbs resources. Reignover is extremely good at giving resources, giving vision, backing you up if you want to play really aggressive. And we don't really have, like, I wouldn't say I'm like that kind of player that like plays super aggressive and requires all that resources. I'm more of like the I think most mid laners are right now in general, but just try to be self-sufficient, and just farm out and then play the team fight as a carry. And we didn't really have a player to absorb all those resources that Reignover could give. So I think that I kind of got off topic, but yeah.
That's all right. So when LCS began, like how did it come about that they basically tell you one day, okay, we're going to officially announce that Link's joining the roster again, and then they made it quite unclear in the announcement, like, is Link actually going to be the mid laner? Is this some sort of compete for the spots? They left it vague enough that they could basically do anything they wanted in the next few weeks. So how does that really come about? Because if you start the split, that's not good news to hear.
Yeah, just to clarify how they told me in Korea that there was a chance that they were picking up. So in Korea, I knew that there was a chance. I didn't know for sure. And then I actually didn't find out until there was another bed in my room when I got there. But it was a pretty like natural process, really. We kind of we split scrims 50-50, and then going into LCS, the team just thought that we had the best chance of winning with me playing, and we just kind of went from there. I was just kind of going on from that. Splitting scrims especially as a carry player, at least for me, maybe more experienced players, better players could, but splitting scrims and getting half the scrims half the practice that all the other competition is getting was pretty hard on me. I thought it was taking a toll on my play, so I was asking like if I could get a higher percentage of scrims so I could improve more and faster, and eventually it just ended up with me getting all the scrims. I think after the first week of LCS ended, from then on I pretty much got all the scrims. So
even if Link had his problems perhaps in playoffs, or obviously from the way he left CLG, maybe he didn't get along with certain teammates, he was always in the LCS like regular seasons one of the best mid laners. He generally had pretty good performance levels and seemed like someone who, at least in that setting, had confidence. It's true he'd been out of the game for a couple of years. Were you worried when you heard he was coming back? Did you think if I do one thing wrong, they're just going to go with him?
Yeah, I was definitely stressed out because I knew he's a really smart person, and he was an extremely smart player back when he was playing in LCS. So I was kind of worried that he would like find his groove really fast, and then I would lose my spot. But I had a lot of confidence coming out of IEM and performing pretty well there. So I was ready to fight it pretty much.
Okay. So when someone gets removed from a lineup and benched, it's easy for people to assume that they were like the main problem, because that's essentially what the team's deciding, if they're going to switch out one player. I mean, now I know they actually technically switched out two players because they got Adrian in as well. But obviously there's scenarios where for a player, they might feel as though that was a bit harsh, or they didn't get what they needed in the team. If you evaluate how you played in the spring split, what do you think a reasonable like analysis of how you played in the spring was. Do you think it was good enough?
Um, I, that's kind of weird because I never am like satisfied. I'm never fully satisfied with my play. Some games during the spring split, I don't think I was consistent enough on a wide variety of champions. The role that I think, like, if we were to evaluate just my play, I don't think it was good enough overall. I think if you look at my games, it's pretty much we didn't really play or draft to my strengths. I was, the how do I say this? Playing control mages and like Orianna, Cassiopeia, those kind of champions, and having to basically draw aggro. I can follow up on those champions perfectly fine. It's pretty easy. But when you need to be the person to be making the big plays, I wasn't able to do that.
Okay.
And that's what the team needed it from me. So in that case, I would say no. Sometimes other teams, you can just be a follow-up player, and that's fine. You only have to make the big plays, once every, whatever games.
Yeah.
I think I shined the best on basically split pushers like Echo and Corki. And I was about to play. The meta actually started to get pretty good for me because I played Talon and Zed too. Yeah, and Talon has just got pretty popular. When I played Echo and Corki, I would say my play was good enough. When I was playing Orianna and for the majority Cassio, I would say it's not good enough.
Okay. So when they told you basically sort of like we're shutting you down for this split, was there any discussion but we'll see how it goes for the summer, and you can try out again in scrims against the next mid laner, and was there anything along those lines?
They weren't really focused on that. They're pretty much just focused on not getting relegated, so there wasn't really much talk. I honestly have no clue, and I don't think they really know exactly what's going to happen. I mean, first we need to not get relegated, and then after that, then we can worry about the summer split. I think that's the kind of thought process. So we haven't really talked about it.
I know you took a week off to see your family or something before you went to Korea, but did you see any of Team Liquid's games since Piglet became the mid laner?
I've watched most of them. Maybe not fully, but I have a general idea. Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing. I know early on he had a couple of games that looked pretty promising, maybe this could work, maybe he can do this. But one of the concerns when you switch to such a drastic role swap like mid lane, where obviously mid lane literally is about knowing the laning matchup, it doesn't matter if you even know the champion, you got to know that specific matchup and how someone's going to play. If I had to just as an outsider say, I'd say that the novelty of him doing the swap seemed really cool, but that seems to have worn off. I've seen some games where some looked decent, and some looked kind of like he was a bit lost. What do you think of the move overall?
So, at the beginning, when I was told Sunday night, right after we lost LCS, I was I was seeing the 80 carries that they were going to try. They wanted me to try 80 carry, playing 80 carry.
You just do a swap, okay?
Yeah. Oh, I think I was at first they wanted Link to try, and then me, and then they were looking for other players. They messaged tons of challenge 80 carries.
Okay. Could that have worked? Couldn't you just spam Ziggs or whatever it is that they play now?
I probably could have played Ziggs.
Play Varus or something. Yeah.
But I just I didn't want to make a fool of myself on LCS. I don't think. Okay. I did that enough on my main role. I don't want to see what would happen if I was playing my off role.
Fair enough, yeah.
And 80 carry isn't really even my off role anymore. It used to be, but not anymore. So I pretty much told them no. I don't really want to do that. So there was tryouts for 80 carries. And when I heard of the players that try out, no one that mains AD. Link, I think that's his off role. So there's a chance. But I thought there was like no way that it was going to happen, even though I think Piglet actually is, or thought, I thought he was better than most other people thought he was. I knew he was better because he does play a lot. Like he plays a lot of mid lane in solo queue and
Okay.
Korean solo queue. I played versus him in Korean solo queue, and I was impressed. Um, but um, fuck, I lost my
Okay,
train
how
of thought.
about what did
What
you
were-
basically think of how he played mid lane in
Oh,
LCS? What are your basic thoughts?
I thought, at the beginning he was pretty much doing as I thought he would. He was wrecking because most players don't play as aggressive as he does. He plays extremely aggressive. Um, so my kind of thought process was like, as long as this aggression keeps working, he's going to be playing really well. He can team fight pretty well, actually. Just his biggest weakness is his laning phase, and then that started to, versus the better mid laners, that started to become a problem. So at first, I thought it went well. I thought he was doing really well, actually. But eventually, there were a few games where him not knowing the matchup hurt him pretty bad.
Do you think that Team Liquid basically starting losing again and having these? I mean, they're not in a good shape in the league. Does that in any way like vindicate the fact that it wasn't like it was just you that was having problems and the rest of the team was awesome?
I mean, sort of, but I just want them. I want them to win. I mean, they're my friends. Um, it, it sucks what happened, um, but it's a little bit vindicating. But I want them to win. I want them to figure things out. So
Okay, so if you'd been on this last Korean boot camp, and presumably, I mean, obviously it's been a famous thing that like the world's teams always go, etc. So you must have heard about them in the past. What was the actual thinking as to why you wanted to come just, solo by yourself to Korea, and then, yeah, what was the plan there? What was the like? Where did the idea come from to think I'll just go and do that?
well, right after I heard that news, I was like really really fucking sad. Like maybe the saddest I've ever been. Because this was like great opportunity for me, and I don't have it anymore. I lost it, and so I just thought immediately like, if I quit, like what am I gonna do? Do I want to quit? And then if I'm not quitting, what do I need to do to put myself in the best position possible to be ready for next split? So I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna go see if I can go join an NACS team, get some games in, maybe make LCS, whatever. But they have a rule now that you can't move down from teams if you play like 8 games LCS. So I couldn't do that. I thought next, I'm like, I don't think any other LCS team would be willing to like replace their mid for me. So that's off the list. And then next, I was pretty much, I don't think any, like, I couldn't join like a EU team either. And I'm not going to be I don't want to join a wildcard team. And I don't even know if they would want me. So it's basically, okay, I need to grind. I need to improve. And if even going to Korea improves compared to playing solo queue in NA, improves me by like 1%, then I should do it. So that's just what I thought, and that's why I'm here.
So when you've got there, is it like, I mean, obviously, right, because everyone who follows League of Legends is like a fucking weeaboo, apparently, and watches anime, every single person who heard that you're going there thinks you're just trying to do like a Dragon Ball Z, right? You're trying to get an hyperbolic time chamber, you're trying to level up or whatever. So are you really just grinding super hard there? Are you playing, how much do you play each day? Like, do you just purely play solo queue?
Yeah, I mean, I just got my account yesterday, and I think so far, I got it like late yesterday, and I think so far I played like 20 something games. So I'm pretty much just grinding solo queue. I'm waking. I wake up this morning. I worked out, showered, ate, play solo queue, ate, solo queue, and now I'm doing this interview. That's all I'm doing pretty much. Before I had my account, I went around and like walked around the city a little bit because I couldn't play. But that's all I'm doing is training. I'm in that time chamber, so to speak.
And is that the thinking going forwards for the whole trip? Is it just grinding?
Yeah, I want to see how high I can get on the leaderboard, and I also just want to see how much I can actually improve. I'm doing like everything I possibly can. I'm talking to a sports psychologist who used to work with the Red Sox.
Okay.
I'm writing down I'm writing down the first time I've actually ever done this. I mean, I've wrote notes a lot in my history, but I'm just writing notes on paper physically after every single solo queue game, talking about the matchup. I'm doing literally anything I can possibly think of to improve my performance. You know, coffee, caffeine pills, vitamins, anything.
Okay. So you said actually there that you're talking with a sports psychologist. One of the interesting things is when people see, if people only watch LCS, okay, they'll have seen you on a bunch of teams, and usually it was like average to lackluster. I mean, admittedly, some of the teams weren't very good. I will say that. It's not like you were on like a contender, you know. But people who've seen you play in the NACS, okay, it's not like automatically you're playing worse competition. Some of those teams had good players on, had good mid laners, you know, and you always seemed to do well when you played in an ACS. Like you seemed like you always were going to get back into LCS. That's probably why you got chances again and again and again. So does this make you think that because a NACS basically doesn't have the stage element, the pressure element in the same way that LCS does, do you think it's a performance thing? Do you think there's some kind of mental block that you've had in playing up to your potential in LCS?
You know, I do think there is a bit of that. I thought I got rid of that at IEM because it was my first I haven't even played an LCS playoffs before, and now I'm playing at an international tournament, you know, the next level.
Yeah.
So it was the most pressure situation I've ever been, and then I had the best games of my life there. So I thought, and I did some things, some different, different mental preparation going into those matches, and I thought if I copied that and went into LCS with that, like this was gonna be my time to shine. This is gonna be my time to break through. You know, I definitely had that problem in the past, like that mental block. And I think I didn't fully get rid of it. I think I just kind of patched it up. And so that's something I'm still working on, is like getting that fully gone. I think I'm much better than I was before. But I think there's still a little bit there.
So if people have issues like this, you know, it doesn't just naturally come to them to do really well in their first tries, etc. People would get discouraged. Like you said, you know, when they told you basically you were cut or that you weren't going to play out mid, yeah, it was obviously depressing. Why not just quit? What makes you want to keep going?
A lot of it is just I really like what I do. I really love the people I meet, the experiences I get to do, and how unique it is. And it's kind of also a thing right now. It's like I'm so deep in. It's not worth to give up now. Like I put in so much work. I'm not gonna quit until I see this thing through.
Okay, so obviously we can't know yet what the situation with Team Liquid is because they themselves don't know. I mean, they're just busy trying to survive at the moment, so no one knows potentially what team you could play for next split or where you'll go when you come back from Korea. But in a general sense, if this all works out, if the boot camp goes well, if you feel like your level's good, what do you think the future is?
Well,
like for example, okay, would you have to literally go back and just start playing NA solo queue and then hope that you can like impress people that way? Would that be the route back in? Do you think other teams, if they hear about this, will, as in you going to Korea, that you'll already have options? What's your sense for what the next step is after Korea?
I think for sure I can join a top challenger team. Pretty sure I can do that. In regards to LCS teams, I never really know. I just hope for the best, kind of like I did last split when I got on this team. Okay. I think I wasn't really expecting it to, but a lot of people are like reacting positively to me going, and like then the tweet I did, I was just something I was doing in the airport on my way back home. I didn't really think too much about it, like, and then it got like 3,000 favorites and a bunch of retweets and stuff. So I think the community perception of me is a lot better. I think that might give me a shot to try out for an LCS team with maybe maybe Team Liquid. I can't, any team, maybe someone gets sick. I don't know. Anything could happen. But
Okay.
usually in between the mid-season for LCS, like between spring and summer, most teams don't want to replace their mid because it's such a core part of the team. So I'm hopeful, but in reality, I think I'll probably just have to join in a challenger team and then work my way back up that way.
Okay, I realize there's in LCS and esports, you get the whole gamut of types of personalities. You know, you get people who are very successful who are quite reserved. You get people who just have fun when they play. But if I just try to relate the situation personally, if I'd have had a few chances, okay, and it hadn't worked out, and then this one now with Team Liquid didn't work out, if I went and I really did just like grind in Korea and I felt like I got my level to a really good level, I'd be like even more driven. Like I'd even say, like behind the scenes, I'd tell Team Liquid, like, you know what, like you're gonna regret removing me. I'll fuck you up when I get on another LCS team. I realize it's like a ridiculous scenario, but that's the
Yeah,
sort of mentality I'd have though. I'd be like, I'm gonna get back into LCS. I might be on another team, and I'm gonna destroy all the people who doubted me. Are you a
yeah,
driven guy? What's your mentality?
yeah. I mean, I think I'm an extremely driven person. You know, I don't. I mean, there's been a few other players to, um, go to Korea on their own, but I think with the way I usually deal with bad scenarios, instead of like letting it keep me down, I just always look for the next thing to focus on, and I think that trait helps me keep very work oriented and driven. You know, I work out a lot. I played Texas football for like 5 years. I'm a pretty driven person.
Even though you had those past chances in LCS and you've obviously had this more recent one, right? It can seem like that could weigh you down, right? Because I mean, I'll give you an example. Okay, so CLG as an organization used to never ever come close to winning LCS, and everyone was like, "Oh, they'll always be losers," But they won a couple of LCS, and now, no one thinks that way anymore. You can change the perception. Does the past in your past chances and the fact that to some people maybe they'll think, "Oh, he's already had his chance," he's washed up. Does that weigh on you at all?
It definitely does, and the main thing it weighs on or it hurts me is that it affects the public perception of me, and affects the teams and the team's owners' perception of me. It makes it a lot harder to join an A tier roster. That's why this upcoming when I joined this Team Liquid, I was extremely happy because I got the chance to join what looked like an A tier roster.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that weighs on me the most, is that I know how I'm not going to be able to get those kind of opportunities because of the perception of me. But
Okay.
I just think what I think that pushes me and why I haven't quit and why I keep going is that I think as soon as for the past fucking 2 years I've been losing. I've been loser. I've been be able to win some, be able to dominate some, but then when it matters, I lose. I think once I start winning, I think I'll be completely unstoppable because I know how to deal with this. I know what it's like to fucking feel like shit over and over and over. But once you start winning and getting confidence, and I think once that happens to me, I think I could be really good.
Okay. So at the end of the interview, do you have a final message or someone you want to thank or say hello to?
I'd just like to thank my friends, my family, my mom, my dad, my sister, Team Liquid. Team Liquid has been amazing this past season. They've supported me so much. The management has been really great in helping me and figuring out what I want to do. And then let's see. Yeah, I think that's about it.